Welcome back, Mando.
Oh, greetings, Bucketheads. Mevar Tagar. Welcome to another exciting installment, a bonus episode of the Mando podcast. I am your host, Nargai Tom, clearly recovering from some sort of respiratory ailment, undiagnosed. But we're here tonight to discuss, have a little chat about the latest and greatest of Star Wars, because that's what we do here on this very podcast. So I thank you for being here. Follow us on the socials, Twitter and X, Instagram. We are at Mando_Vision. Hit us up on the emails at mandovisiontom@gmail.com. And we can have long-form conversations that way if you'd like. Yeah, you know what, friends? Bucketheads. I didn't think my voice sounded this bad initially until I started talking. And I'm listening to it in the earphones. And I don't know what's wrong with me. I feel perfectly fine. So why I sound like a Nyctos fresh from the swamp is beyond me. But an exciting thing happened this past weekend, so we needed to get together. We needed to chat a little bit. You know, D23 happened in, well, I think it was in Anaheim. I didn't bother to check. I wasn't invited. And new Star Wars stuff was made readily available to all of us. You know, there was teases for Season 2 of Andor, which, again, if you've watched that footage online, you're like, ooh, give me that real trailer. Let's talk about it fully. But what they did give us, what the show that we can talk about a little bit more completely is Skeleton Crew. The next show coming down the line here in 2024, debuting December 3rd on the Disney Plus. Skeleton Crew is going to drop. And now, again, this was a show that we were supposed to have had out by now. It was originally scheduled for around 2023, and then the actors and writers strike happened, and they pushed it a whole calendar year. So now, despite the kind of initial plot teases that we got back then, now we are getting something a little bit more fully formed. We're seeing sort of the realization of what was coming on, like those little teaser images and little synopsises that we were getting. And it is, as promised, it is a sort of 80s style Amblin Entertainment style story. I've heard a lot of comparisons based off this first trailer to E.T., The Explorers, things like that. And yeah, I think that fits right on. But the movie that I'm going to go with, the movie that I gravitate towards as sort of like the driving influence of this film. And again, I don't listen to all the podcasts. I'm probably not the first person to say this, but I'm going with Flight of the Navigator, a beautiful Disney movie from the mid to late 80s that is much like the trailer for this show. A small boy stumbles across a spacecraft and goes off on journeys across the galaxy. That is kind of sort of what we're getting here. And what I like about this trailer, and let me just pause before I even get into it, because again, longtime listeners of Mandovision know we don't do in-depth trailer breakdowns. That is not how this show works. Particularly as as I neglected to mention at the beginning, this is Mandovision After Dark. I am a little bit subdued, which, again, didn't contribute to my vocal stylings, but is a factor nonetheless. So, that all being said, I liked this trailer quite a bit. This is another slice of what Star Wars can be for certain fans. Again, we are of the opinion on this podcast that Star Wars should exist in a multitude of genres and formats and styles. It's not just always going to be a cinematic space opera. So getting a slice of something that's kind of reminiscent, for my generation in particular, nostalgic, pure nostalgia porn, like Amblin Entertainment from the 80s was, again, i.e. E.T., The Explorers, even Goonies to an extent. This all kind of like hits a lot of those notes for this individual, but is it for you? That's going to be the question you have to ask yourself. Are you a fan of a Star Wars version of Kids on Bikes? Because that is what this show looks like. And I think the show, on first impression, looks like it will have a lot of heart, a lot of character, a lot of those things that made us like those movies so much back then. But for the newer generations, the younger people out there, I don't know if it will speak to them as much. I mean, maybe their parents didn't raise them on the same entertainment that my generation grew up with. And that will be sort of, I think, in my opinion, the deciding factor on if this show catches on with more than just, 80s and 90s kids. We will see. We will see. I think this show has a lot of promise. It shows a lot of potential. Again, kids on bikes basically stumble across a spaceship, get launched into the galaxy to have adventures in a post-Empire, New Republic era, and kind of show us a little bit more of a post-Empire galaxy. So I'm intrigued by that. I'm fascinated by that because so much of what's coming out from Disney Star Wars, either in cinemas or on Disney Plus, is going to be kind of wrapping up this post-Empire, New Republic era stuff. We're gearing up for Thrawn. We're gearing up with more Ahsoka, more Mandalorian, and Grogu, and this is firmly in that timeline. One of the things that I sort of was intrigued by was the sort of New Republic suburb of whatever planet it is they're on, and the idea of the kind of like these like tract houses and a variety of aliens amongst others, just kind of living their lives, walking their dogs, and going to school. Very Amblin Entertainment. But it's Star Wars, so of course it's got aliens and it's got all these other things. But it's tract housing in Star Wars, which is kind of a new concept because, for better or worse, we've not spent a lot of time with sort of like the average, everyday family of Star Wars. We've been at the heights of politics with senators and chancellors and Jedi. We've been down in the dregs with slaves and hustlers and gamblers and gangsters. There's not been a lot of stuff in the middle. But what I did sort of like about seeing that shot of a sort of a Star Wars John Hughesian suburbia was that I think it contrasts nicely with what we've seen in Andor with that very galactic / communist kind of living situation, where it was all very concrete and steel. Everything was identical. Everything was cold and emotionless. This is a nice contrast to that because, it's like tract housing. It's the Star Wars equivalent of a planned neighborhood, but it plays nicely into the idea of what the New Republic is in ideology, which is like this sort of like fresh start for the people of the galaxy. I've read enough to sort of think that there's a little bit more to it than that, that we'll start to see sort of the bureaucratic red tape that crops up in these new governments, in this new republic, with the parents of these children who will go missing. So it's not just going to focus on the children. It will focus somewhat on their parents and the efforts to recover them and the sort of stumbling that the New Republic has with all their red tape and their levels of bureaucracy, like we've seen in The Mandalorian. But again, I don't want to talk too much about that because like a lot of that's based off of things I haven't seen with my own eyes. It's based off of reviews and articles that I read from a year ago, at the last Disney Star Wars Celebration. So I don't know for sure. I think that's an interesting element to add into it. I think that's an interesting idea to pursue. But what I saw in this trailer, I thought was intriguing. It looked like a sort of romp across the Star Wars galaxy in a post-Republic time. I'm sorry, a post-Empire timeline. And these kids who are on this adventure, on this journey of exploration and self-discovery, and they come across a character like Jude Law, who they, again, one of the characters assumes is a Jedi, but I think we all know probably not so much. More of a Force sensitive who is able to use the Force just enough to benefit them. But, who knows? Maybe there's more to it than that. Jude Law's character is still somewhat shrouded in mystery on the show, and I'm okay with that. I'd love to play the speculation game and talk about it could be this, it could be that, he could be who, blah 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 blah. But I'm not gonna. Let's wait. December 3rd. It sounds like it's far away, but it's really, really not. It'll be here before we know it. It's here for the holidays. It looks like a great Star Wars family show to watch as we head into the holiday season. So I'm excited. I'm intrigued. At the very, very least, I think what I like about it is that it looks very approachable. It doesn't look like it's mythology based. You don't have to have the most comprehensive knowledge of Star Wars to watch it. But we'll see if that's true or not. And that's all I have to say about that. But as far as this show goes, you're listening to this little bonus show today. Tomorrow, we will be back to discuss the next episode of our Star Wars The Clone Wars rewatch. We are on the third part of the final 4 episodes of the Mandalorian, of Star Wars The Clone Wars. It's a big deal, and I hope to God I sound better. I thought I sounded okay before I started this podcast, and now I'm regretting every second that I have uttered sound into this microphone. I hope it has been tolerable for you, my fine friends in Buckethead Nation. So, again, thank you for your continued support, despite how bad I sound, of the Mandovision podcast. I am your host, Nargai Tom. Follow us on the socials at Mando_Vision, Twitter and Instagram. Email the show, mandovisiontom@gmail.com. Be sure to like, subscribe, follow, and share this show with all of the Mandalorians in your covert. And hey, if your platform allows it, sweet 5-star reviews help us out tremendously. All right, Bucketheads, we'll be back with a full-blown episode tomorrow, despite how bad I sound right now. We'll be back. Don't worry about it. I'm going to be here. Go out there, be great Star Wars fans, and I will check in with you guys in 24 hours. All right, remember, this podcast can only end one way. This is the way.
This is the way.
This is the way.
This is the way.